is breaking news from CBS News Chicago.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being with us on the stream. We are here to update you on breaking news happening this afternoon in the case against Mike Madigan.
Yes, at this hour, the former Illinois House Speaker is in court. He is awaiting his sentencing as we speak. And CBS News Chicago cameras were there when Madigan walked into the Dirksen Federal Building. You're watching some of this right now. The hearing started about an hour into what could last the rest of the afternoon.
The 83-year-old was convicted back in February on 10 felony counts, including bribery, conspiracy, and wire fraud. Jurors acquitted him on 7 counts, and they were deadlocked on 6.
The government argued Madigan's abuse of power damaged public trust and that he has expressed no remorse for his crimes. Madigan's defense team called him a remarkable public servant and asked the judge to sentence him to 5 years probation along with community service and a, quote, reasonable fine.
But according to our legal analyst, Irv Miller, probation is not on the table. Instead, several months behind bars. We want to go to Irv Miller. He is watching this unfold this afternoon at the Dirksen Federal Building. Irv, we hear things are going pretty slow at the moment.
To say the least. You know, when lawyers start talking, they like to hear themselves keep going on, and that's what's going on. They're all taking advantage of their time in front of the judge today.
What is the point of this process today, Irv? Are the lawyers doing all they can to try to impact the ultimate sentence here?
We are at a preliminary point in a sentencing hearing in federal court. We have to first determine what the guidelines are for the judge to use in order to impose a sentence. The defense obviously wants a low guideline number, the prosecution wants a high guideline number, and they're fighting over some minor points with respect to the ultimate sentence. The first thing they're arguing about is whether or not the former speaker lied when he took the witness stand. Because if the judge determined that he lied, that's obstructing justice, and that makes the guidelines go up. The other thing they're talking about is whether or not there was a multi-million dollar, like $400 million lost to ComEd based on the bribery. The defense is arguing that they can't really figure it out, it's too speculative, but the government is saying, yeah, it's $400 million. That adds on many, many years to the sentence, ultimately, if in fact the judge accepts the government's argument.
Irv, I was curious, as they were talking about money, we have a reporter in the courtroom who's taking some notes for us, so we know more about the conversation happening in there. But would that play into the decision about a possible fee at all? Because I know that Madigan may be required as part of his sentence to pay some kind of fee.
They're not looking for a forfeiture, which was originally part of the trial. About a month ago, the government decided not to proceed on the forfeiture counts, but there is a question of a fine as opposed to any particular jail sentence. And the government's asking for $1.5 million fine,
right.
And the defense obviously wants nothing to do with that.
You mentioned the guidelines, Irv. I'm curious about how they might shift because the government asked for 12.5 years. Do you think, depending on how these arguments go this afternoon, they might ask for more? That's what you're saying?
Well, no, they're not going to ask for more. Actually, the guidelines as laid out by the government calls for a life sentence, not 12.5 years. What they're saying, yeah, we don't, even though the guidelines say life, we don't think that's appropriate. First of all, the maximum sentence is 20 years. So the guidelines exceed the maximum penalty. So that's why, frankly, these guidelines tend to be irrelevant. But what they do is they let you get an insight into what the judge is thinking about whether or not he's going to be lenient as far as sentencing or whether he's going to throw the book at Speaker Madigan. And I have to say, just by the tone of the judge's statements regarding the amount of loss to ComEd, I think he's leaning towards throwing the book at him, and I don't think leniency is going to be a part of it.
Wow, interesting. So they are, let's just say, in the weeds right now about some of these details, still wading through a lot of it. Do we know, Irv, possibly how much time that could continue to take? And I'm curious if we know if there are any speakers that are planning to say something in court prior to the ultimate sentencing.
That hasn't even been discussed yet. We're still in the preliminary guidelines stage. We're not really at the, you would call a typical aggravation and mitigation sentencing hearing. That's yet to come after the judge decides what the guideline sentences are. Like I said earlier, whether or not the judge finds that the speaker was lying when he took the stand. And an interesting question that the judge asked the Speaker's lawyers is your client still saying that even though he was found guilty, he's still maintaining his innocence? That's not a good sign for what's coming later on.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously the judge is not too happy. The defendant saying, hey, I don't care about the jury's verdict. I am an innocent man. And it was interesting the judge asked that question.
All right, Irv, thank you very much. We're going to be in touch, and that is our coverage for now anyway, but we're going to have live coverage across all of our platforms here on CBS News Chicago throughout the afternoon, and we'll certainly let you know when we do get a sentence.
In the meantime, we'll see you back on TV today at 4.